For decades, we told patients one thing: cut the salt, lower the pressure. Simple, clean, easy to explain in a 10-minute appointment. I believed it too. I prescribed it. I repeated it thousands of times. Then I started looking more carefully, not at the numbers on the chart, but at the actual arteries I was opening up on the operating table, the walls, the damage, the patterns I kept seeing in people who had done everything right. And I began asking a different question. Not how much salt did this person eat, but what else is going on here that we haven't been talking about? The salt story isn't wrong, but it's only half the picture, and the half we've been quietly ignoring for 30 years. That's the half that's been damaging your heart while you thought you were doing everything right. Today, I want to show you what that other half looks like, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Starting today, I want to tell you about a man I operated on about 12 years ago. 71 years old, retired school teacher, no smoking, no drinking, walked 4 miles every morning, ate salads, fish, whole grains, took his medication without fail. His blood pressure had been stubbornly high for over a decade. 145, 150 on a good day. His cardiologist kept adjusting the dose. Nothing moved the needle much. And then came the day I opened his chest. The arterial damage was significant, the kind of stiffness and narrowing I'd expect in someone who had lived very differently. I kept thinking, this man did everything we told him to do. So why did his arteries look like this? That question stayed with me for years, and the answer changed how I practice medicine entirely. The salt and blood pressure connection is real. That's not in dispute. When sodium builds up in your bloodstream, your body pulls in more fluid to dilute it. More fluid means more volume. More volume means more pressure on your vessel walls. The logic is sound, it just isn't the whole story. So, we told everyone less salt, lower pressure, and for some people, it worked beautifully. But not for everyone. Here's what the research has been quietly showing for the last 2 decades, and what most patients never get told. For a large portion of people, particularly those over 60, cutting salt alone moves blood pressure by only 4 to 5 points on average. That's not nothing, but it's rarely enough. Something else is pushing that pressure up, and you need to know what it is. Something that has nothing to do with the salt shaker, and that something is working against you every single day, 3, 4, 5 times a day actually. Can you guess when? I'll show you exactly what I mean. Here's what I want you to think about. Every time you eat anything, even something perfectly healthy, your body releases a hormone called insulin. Its job is to take sugar from your food and move it into your cells for energy. That's normal. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. But insulin doesn't just manage sugar, and that's where things get interesting. It does something else at the same time. Something most doctors, including cardiologists, rarely explain to their patients. Insulin sends a direct signal to your kidneys, and that signal says, hold on to sodium, don't release it, keep it here. Now, think about what we just established. Sodium in the bloodstream pulls in fluid. More fluid means more pressure on your vessel walls. So, if insulin is constantly telling your kidneys to hold sodium, what do you think happens to your blood pressure? It stays up persistently, stubbornly, even when you're eating clean and exercising and doing everything right. This isn't a fringe theory. Research going back to the late 1980s established this connection with remarkable clarity. Elevated insulin levels are directly linked to hypertension, not as a side effect, as a core mechanism. The evidence is solid. Does your doctor talk about your insulin level when they check your blood pressure? Most don't. That's the problem. Let me walk you through exactly what happens in your body. Because once you see this mechanism clearly, it's hard to unsee it. You eat a meal, blood sugar rises, your pancreas releases insulin. So far, completely normal. This is healthy physiology working as designed. But here's where it gets interesting, especially after 60. As we age, our cells gradually become less responsive to insulin. The pancreas notices this and compensates by producing even more. So, older adults often have chronically elevated insulin, even on a perfectly healthy diet. The cells aren't listening as well, so the body shouts louder. And that louder shout has real consequences for your blood pressure. Now, that elevated insulin does 3 things simultaneously. Pay close attention because this is the core of everything I'm going to tell you. First, it signals the kidneys to reabsorb sodium instead of flushing it out in urine. Sodium that should be leaving stays. Second, it activates the sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. Heart beats faster, blood vessels tighten. Third, it interferes with a molecule called nitric oxide, the compound that keeps your vessel walls relaxed and flexible. So you have sodium retained, you have the nervous system on low-level alert, and you have vessels that cannot fully relax. All three happening at once. Is it any wonder the pressure won't come down? You could eliminate every grain of salt from your diet and still have all three of those forces working against you. Think about that for a moment. Have you ever wondered why your pressure is high in the morning, before eating anything, before any salt? Now you have part of your answer. And this brings us to one of the most surprising things I'll share today. Here's where it gets really interesting. Honestly, this is the part that surprises my patients the most when I explain it. Most people over 60 who are watching their health are not eating badly. They're eating frequently. And that's the problem. Small portions, healthy choices spread throughout the day. A handful of nuts at 10, a piece of fruit at noon, a small yogurt at 3, maybe a light dinner at 7. It sounds responsible, doesn't it? It sounds exactly right. It sounds like what we've been told to do for years. Eat less, eat more often, keep your metabolism going. But here's the problem. Every single time you eat, even that handful of almonds, even that apple, your insulin rises every single time. And then it takes roughly 2 to 3 hours to come back down to baseline. That gap matters more than you know. So if you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, your insulin never fully drops. Not once during the entire waking day. It stays elevated all day long. From your morning oatmeal to your evening snack, your kidneys continuously receive the signal to hold sodium. Your nervous system stays gently activated. Your vessels never get a full window to relax. 24 hours of low-level pressure on your arterial walls. We call this pattern grazing. For someone with blood pressure issues after 60, it may be one of the most counterproductive habits there is. Even if every single food choice is perfectly healthy, let that sink in. The food isn't the problem. The timing is. Here's a question worth sitting with. How many times a day do you actually eat, including snacks and caloric drinks? Count everything. Most people are genuinely surprised by the answer. The fix isn't about eating less food, it's about something else entirely. It's about giving your body longer gaps between meals, creating what I call windows of low insulin so your kidneys can do their job, so your kidneys finally get the chance to flush out that retained sodium. We'll come back to exactly how to do this at the end. Let me introduce you to another patient, 67 years old, 5'9", 170 lb, by every visual standard, a healthy weight. Her doctor had never once flagged weight as a concern, but her blood pressure was consistently elevated. And when we ran a detailed body composition scan, we found something unexpected, something her bathroom scale had been hiding for years, and it changed everything about how we understood her blood pressure. She had significant visceral fat, the kind that wraps around your internal organs, liver, pancreas, intestines, completely invisible from outside. You can't pinch it. It doesn't make your clothes feel tighter. The bathroom scale will never reveal it, but it's extraordinarily active metabolically. Visceral fat releases inflammatory compounds around the clock, disrupting insulin signaling at the cellular level, making your tissues less responsive over time, which forces your pancreas to produce even more insulin. A self-reinforcing cycle that deepens with every month that passes. Unrest. Studies suggest roughly 30% of adults with a normal body weight have metabolically unhealthy profiles. In people over 60, that number is likely higher. The cruel irony: elevated insulin actively prevents the body from burning that deep internal fat. You're stuck in a loop, and blood pressure is where it shows. Does that sound familiar? Normal weight, healthy habits, and still blood pressure that refuses to behave. You'd be surprised how many patients nod at this. Now let's talk about something most people never think to question. Something sitting right there in your morning routine every single day. Do you drink fresh juice in the morning? A smoothie with fruit and yogurt? Maybe something healthy mid-afternoon? Because I need to tell you something uncomfortable. Liquid calories are one of the fastest insulin triggers we know of. Faster than solid food. Considerably faster. Here's exactly why. When you eat a whole orange, the fiber slows digestion. Insulin rises gradually, the way your body was designed to handle natural sugar. That's healthy physiology. When you drink orange juice, even fresh squeezed, even with no added sugar, that fiber is completely gone. The natural sugars hit almost immediately. The same is true for smoothies. The moment you blend fruit, you break down in cellular structure. What was slow release becomes fast release. If you start your morning with a smoothie and add a mid-morning juice, you may be triggering 2 or 3 insulin spikes before lunch, before you've touched a single grain of salt, before your first proper meal of the day. Think about what that means for your blood pressure. Ask yourself, when did you last stop and think about what your morning drink was doing to your pressure? Most people never have moving liquid calories into a meal window rather than between meals. Small shift, surprisingly significant impact on your daily insulin curve. Here's something that took me years of clinical observation to fully appreciate. The research is now caught up to what I was seeing at the bedside. Your blood pressure is supposed to drop at night. During sleep, your body shifts into repair mode. Heart rate slows, vessels relax, pressure falls 10 to 20%. Doctors call this nocturnal dipping. It's one of the most important protective mechanisms your cardiovascular system has. You want this every single night. People who don't dip at night have significantly higher rates of heart attack, stroke, and kidney damage. Not slightly. The gap is substantial, and one of the most reliable disruptors of nocturnal dipping is eating close to bedtime. Even a healthy meal at 8 or 9 p.m. When you eat late, insulin rises. Kidneys go back into sodium retention mode right before sleep. The sympathetic nervous system gets a nudge right when it should stand down. Instead of pressure dropping as you sleep, it stays elevated sometimes for the entire night. 8 hours of arterial stress while you believe you're resting. Night after night, month after month, year after year, walls quietly under stress. You'd wake up and wonder why your morning reading is still high. When did you last have your final meal? And how long after that did you go to bed? That gap matters more than most people ever realize. A practical target. Finish your last meal at least 3 hours before sleep, not for digestion, for insulin, because your heart deserves genuine rest. I want to be direct with you now, because you deserve the unvarnished version, not the softened one. What I've seen on the operating table, it matters. In 32 years of cardiac surgery, I have opened thousands of chests. I have held human hearts in my hands. I have seen the damage firsthand. The arteries of someone with long-term hypertension are different. Thicker walls, stiffer, far less elastic than they should be at their age. In a healthy artery, the wall expands and contracts with each heartbeat like a rubber band. Elastic, responsive, forgiving. The heart itself tells the story too. Pumping against elevated resistance for years. The muscle thickens, works harder, gets less oxygen than it needs. A significant portion of patients I operated on have been managing their blood pressure adequately for years. Numbers in acceptable range, damage still accumulating because medication can lower the pressure reading without fully addressing the underlying metabolic issue that's driving it. The number improves, the cause remains. I am not telling you to stop your medication. Please hear me clearly on this. Never change your prescription without consulting your own doctor first. But the number on the monitor is only part of the story. The insulin piece, snacking, liquid calories, late meals, that's entirely within your control. Addressing it may do more for your long-term cardiovascular health than any dose adjustment alone could. How many years have you been managing this without the full picture? Everything I've described today comes down to one central idea. Your body already knows how to lower your blood pressure. It has the machinery. Your kidneys can flush excess sodium. Your vessels can relax. Your nervous system can stand down from that low-level alert. The capability is there. What's been blocking it in many cases is that insulin has never been low enough for long enough to let those processes actually run. Think of a factory that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no maintenance window ever scheduled. Eventually, something breaks. Your metabolism, your cardiovascular system is no different. It needs that downtime. And when you finally give it, the results are remarkable. When you create genuine gaps between meals, actual time with nothing coming in, insulin drops to baseline. And in that window, something remarkable happens. Your kidneys begin releasing the sodium they've been holding. Vessel walls begin to soften. The sympathetic nervous system quietly steps back. I've seen patients in their late 60s and 70s achieve blood pressure reductions of 15 to 20 points from meal timing changes alone. Not from new medication, not from eliminating every grain of salt, simply from restructuring when they eat. Same food, same exercise, different timing. That is the part of the picture nobody showed you until now, and it's entirely within your hands. So, let me give you 3 concrete steps starting today. First, stop grazing. Give yourself at least 4 to 5 hours between meals. No snacks, no caloric drinks between eating windows. Let your insulin fully come down. Your kidneys need that gap to do their job. This isn't about eating less food. It's about giving your body time between meals. Second, Finish eating at least 3 hours before bed, not for digestion, for your heart. Those 8 hours of sleep should be genuine cardiovascular rest. The nocturnal dipping window, that 10 to 20% pressure drop, is one of your most powerful cardiovascular tools. Protect it every night. Third, look at your liquids: juice, smoothies, sweetened, teas, even the healthy ones. Move them into a meal window rather than drinking between meals. A small shift with a surprisingly significant impact on your daily insulin curve. You don't have to give these up, just time them differently. None of this requires perfection. None of it costs anything, and none of it replaces your medication or your relationship with your doctor. It works alongside everything you're already doing. You've been disciplined for years. You followed the rules. You deserve to know all the rules, not just the ones that were easy to explain in a 10-minute appointment. The complete picture. That's what you came here for today. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. When you look at these three patterns, the grazing, the late meals, the liquid calories, which one do you recognize most in your own daily life? Tell me below. If this gave you a new way of thinking about your blood pressure, share it with someone you care about who's been struggling with the same frustration. They need to hear this too, because most people managing hypertension have never once had this conversation with their doctor. And I want to add something personal. I've spent decades in operating rooms seeing what this condition does to real people from the inside. Every patient I operated on had someone who loved them, a family that needed them, a life worth fighting for. That's who I made this for. You are capable of more than you've been told. Your body has remarkable capacity to recover when you give it the right conditions and the information it deserves. Take care of your heart. It has been working hard for you for a long time now. Now it's your turn to work for it. And remember, everything I've shared today is general medical information based on current research. Your situation is individual. Your history is unique. Before making any changes, especially if you are currently on blood pressure medication, please talk with your own physician first. That conversation matters. Your doctor knows your full picture. They are your partner in this. What I've shared today is meant to prepare you for that conversation, not replace it. If this video was useful, a like helps more people find it, and subscribing means you'll see the next one on a topic just as important as this. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of your heart.